So welcome everybody to this Future of Voice breakfast discussion. Really great to have everybody here. So my name is Otto Söderlund. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Speechly. And I'm delighted to see such a really nice and relevant crowd here today for these discussions. To start today, I just wanted to kind of like quickly scan a bit the voice experience and voice connections within this room. So just to ask, how many in this room, in this table, has actually used voice technology in the past week? Good, excellent. How many within this room is somehow involved in developing voice technology or voice experiences or voice services? Designing or developing? Okay, interesting. So that's good. And how many in this room actually believe that voice will be something big in the future, someday in the future? Excellent, great, cool. So great to have all of you here. So the purpose of today is to share experiences, share learnings, share ideas and insights, and learn from peers. And we would like this session to be very interactive. We want it to be intimate, so please feel free to ask questions, comment, ask from your peers, and really kind of let's make it a discussion. Let's try not to make it a presentation. Of course, there is some presentation just to give some inspiration and some ideas, but please feel free to ask questions and comments. Let's really make it an interactive session. So the agenda today, so we'll start with Hannes, a couple of words about of course, Speechly and the context for this discussion. Then we have two amazing cases here. So we have the first case, S Group, which is the largest grocery retailer in Finland, where Harri will share how they have been using voice to improve their shopping experience. And then we have another super interesting case from Musgraves, which is the #1 grocer in Ireland, where Niall will be sharing how they are using voice to solve some of the problems they have in their e-commerce experiences. So really interesting discussions. And at the end, then let's have a roundtable discussion, really commenting, having questions, sharing ideas and views. And at the end, we reserve the room then until 11. So then feel free to stay here to network and talk with your peers and exchange ideas also in a kind of more informal one-to-one setting. But without further ado, let's introduce a little bit of who we are. So I'm Otto. My own background is that I'm a techie guy. I started programming at 10 years old, and I did all kinds of computer jobs. Ended up studying in the MIT of Finland, doing some computer science, and found myself studying topics that nowadays are called artificial intelligence. Worked in some startups, but then decided to pivot and changed my career. So I did my master's in business strategy and ended up doing management consultancy for over 10 years and helped large European enterprises around Europe with their digital strategies, their digital transformations. And as a matter of fact, lot of e-commerce strategy and e-commerce transformation. So this is a very familiar and homeful industry for me. And after that, I started my own management consultancy boutique that became one of the most successful in Nordics. I sold it off to a big chain and then started Speechly with Hannes.
and welcome from my part as well. Really happy to see you all here. So, as Otto said, so I'm the co-founder and CTO of Speechly. I have a more technical background compared to Otto, so I have a PhD in machine learning back from 2010, and after which I've been working in the industry on problems of machine learning, data mining, text mining, and natural language understanding. During my PhD, I also worked at Google for some time, at Google Maps in Zurich, and after I got my PhD, I worked for Nokia for a couple of years, doing recommendation systems and predictive analytics for Nokia mobile phone demand and supply. After Nokia, I joined Rovio, which is the company behind the Angry Birds game. There I was responsible for Rovio's internal data analytics infrastructure. So basically building infrastructure for collecting gaming events, which at that time we had something like 250 million monthly active users. After Rovio, I joined Reactor, which is a consulting company. I was first doing things related to data engineering, but my focus shifted more towards machine learning and especially language technology. And the last big project that I did for Reactor was for Apple, where I was a part of a four language engineers developing the first version of Siri for Finnish. And coming out of that project, we founded Speechly. And this is what Speechly looked I think a couple of months ago. We have a couple of new faces has joined after that, but we're a team of 12, I believe now. We're 3 speech recognition specialists, 3 natural language understanding specialists, 3 developers, and a commercial team of Otto and our head of growth, Otto Matthias.
And Ben.
And Ben, yes. Yeah, do you want to mention a couple of other words about Speechly?
So maybe worth mentioning is that we're backed by some of the best VCs in the world. So that's actually, we have been very fortunate enough to be able to choose the VCs. So that's great. That's great. So we are in good company, so to speak, and we're growing really fast. So cool. All right. So that's a short intro of Speechly. So let's talk quickly about the kind of context for this one. So, like mentioned, we are all here because we have some kind of interest towards voice as a subject. And just to make it kind of like clear where we stand, we absolutely believe that voice is a paradigm shift when it comes to UIs. So that means that we've seen these different paradigm shifts, starting from the mouse, going from the mobile keyboards, and then most recently going through touch as a way how people interact with machines. And we believe that voice is going to be something that's going to change how people interact with technology in a similar way. I have 2 small kids at home, and when we are looking at or watching Paw Patrol or another interesting program from the television, they always try to go swipe the television because it's so instinctively natural for them that of course technology, you should be able to swipe it because it's a human way to interact with technology. So we believe that in a couple of years' time, these little kids, they will be actually speaking to the telly, they will be speaking to the cars, they will be speaking to the refrigerators, because that is ultimately the most natural way how human beings communicate. That's where we believe it. Now, if you look at the voice market now, so we have reached a stage where if you look at the technology and look at, for example, speech recognition, computers can already transcribe human speech at parity with human scribes. So we have already reached the level where computers can do this task even better than humans. If you look at the patterns of usage of how voice technology is being used, there's clearly a division. If you look at the Asian kind of killer use cases, or what's driving the usage of voice technologies there, it's heavily driven by actually the ability to use voice to dictate messages. So if you went into Asian big cities like 5 or 10 years ago, you could see people were there like this, walking on the streets. Everybody had their mobile phones. Nowadays, if you walk in those ones, you'll see people like this there because everybody is actually typing or sending audio messages. So already 77%, for example, of Chinese smartphone users are actually using dictation and voice functionalities on a regular basis. In the US and actually in the UK too, it's a bit different way or technology or use case that is driving the usage, and that's especially revolving around smart speakers and assistants. And it's estimated that by the end of this year, already 3/4 of US households would have smart speakers. That's insane. Another big tipping point that is expected to happen this year is in search space. It's expected that this will be the year when actually most of the searches will happen through voice. So more voice-based searches than text-based searches. And that's quite a fundamental shift in behavior in such a popular use case as searching. And when we talk about commerce, that's kind of the industry that brought us here today, it's expected in a couple of years' time in US alone, the voice commerce market is going to be $40 billion. So it's quite huge. But You probably all tried the voice technologies and you've talked to people who use voice technologies. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of super high expectations, but the reality is something very different. When you talk to people using these technologies, people are not super excited or just amazed, just preaching about them. They are like, okay, it's nice, it's okay. And there seems to be actually a pretty huge gap between the expectations of people and the reality. And that was actually one of the key reasons that led us originally to start Speechly. Because we realized that the current technology out there in the market, basically the big players everybody knows, that technology was great for solving simple tasks like easy simple remote commands or basically retrieving information, but it wasn't really tailored or designed to solve more complex user tasks or user problems. So that meant that it couldn't solve the high valuable problems that users had. And that was one of the reasons where we originally already had our belief that for the real killer application for voice, which we have not yet seen, we have just seen a lot of hype. For that to emerge, there needs to be technology that actually allows you to build more intuitive, more real-time, and more multimodal voice user interfaces. So that's basically what has led us to this point. I'll let you tell a little bit about.
So as Otto mentioned, voice technology really has a problem. So you can do stuff like play X on Spotify and set on the lights, but beyond that, if you try to do anything more complex, you're pretty much destined to fail. And actually, that is the exact problem that Speechly's technology is solving. And so if you think of complex tasks, there are a lot of complex tasks in e-commerce, for instance. Think of like ordering a week's worth of food for a large family. That's a pretty complex task that you're not going to complete with an assistant or a smart speaker. Think of ordering like pizzas for 6 persons. Think of doing a product discovery for buying a new pair of trousers, for instance, where you want to do complex filterings and complex queries on various attributes. So those are tasks that you're not going to do with current assistant technology. And so what is sort of the secret sauce of Speechly? So where we take sort of inspiration or what we've sort of studied quite a lot is human face-to-face communication, which is probably the most efficient form of communication there is. And sort of the fallacy with current assistants is that efficient dialogue is something where you say something first and then you get the assistant says something, you say something, the assistant says something. But efficient communication is a lot more, how would I say, fine-grained. So if you think of face-to-face communication, if I'm talking now to you guys here, I'm explaining something that's fairly complex, and I'm talking, you guys are listening, but there's actually an ongoing exchange of information. So people are very good at, when they listen, they use facial expressions, gestures. So there's a constant stream of feedback actually coming to the speaker, which is very tight loop. And that tight loop enables much more complex things to be done in a face-to-face setting. So what are those things? So first of all, visual cues. And there are two sort of important things with visual cues. The first thing is that they're non-interruptive. So I can get a lot of feedback with, even though, so basically I can get a lot of feedback but still continue expressing my message. So the problem with current assistants is that they are the only the main mode of feedback is voice, and it can be, or voice synthesis, and it can be very disruptive. So people tend to hesitate, and that might trigger the response, which is this annoying voice synthesis response, which basically interrupts the flow of the user to express a complex thing. That's sort of the number one. The other thing about visual feedback is that it's very intuitive for humans. So we can ingest a lot more information with from visual information than from uttered sentences. So it's a lot more intuitive, a lot more efficient. And that's sort of a second thing. And the third thing is that without non-interruptive feedback, you can be very reactive, you can be very fast in providing the feedback. And what that gives you is that you can fail fast. So you express something and you notice that the other party doesn't understand, so you can correct your message. Or if you get positive feedback, you can continue on the task. So those things are sort of the thing that makes human face-to-face communication very efficient, but which is lacking from the current generation of assistants. And the sort of technical thing also, so why isn't this possible with current technology? And what's different about Speechly? So what is required to give this type of feedback is streaming end-to-end natural language understanding. So not just speech recognition, but actually understanding. So what humans do when we listen to other people, we are constantly trying to make sense of what that does. What the other person is saying. And what that then permits is to give the feedback as the other person is talking. So that's in the core of speechless technology. So what we've developed is a technology where the system is starting to make sense of what the person is saying the minute or the second they start to speak. And that enables the tight loop of feedback that then enables more complex things to be done. So that's, and we have here now 2 examples of use cases using our technology. And so it will be very, very nice to hear what these gentlemen have to say.
You don't know.
Cool. So next, do you have any, by the way, questions or comments regarding the stuff that Hannes and myself were saying? Make sense somehow? Okay, good. We can have questions and comments at the end. So, but now for Harry.
Can we switch?
Yes.